Level 0 Jungles of South America. 3 a.m. You open your eyes. The air is thick, sticky, soaked in the smell of rotting leaves and dampness. Around you is the absolute, impenetrable darkness of a primeval tropical forest. You are not wearing your usual American camouflage or helmet. Only local, tattered clothes soaked in mud. In your hands is an old, scratched Kalashnikov instead of your standard M4. Next to you by the fire sit 2 armed guerrillas. You speak to them in their native dialect. You eat their food cooked over coals. You sleep on the bare ground next to them. To them, you are El Gringo, an alien from another world who came to help them overthrow a brutal cartel. But in reality, you are a special forces operator of the U.S. Army, a legendary Green Beret, a specialist in unconventional warfare. Your main task is not just to kill enemies with a sniper rifle. Your task is to build an entire army of locals and make them fight for the interests of your state. You are thousands of kilometers from the nearest American base. No air support, no drones, no medevac. If you are exposed, or if the locals decide to betray you one night, you will disappear in these jungles forever, and no one will come looking for you. Your only armor is your intellect, empathy, and ability to manipulate people. What do you do in this tense moment by the fire? Keep your hand on a hidden pistol, listening to every rustle and expecting a stab in the back from your allies, or relax and laugh at their joke. Blurring the line between the mission and true friendship, choose total paranoia or full immersion. Level 1, Candidate Survival Lesson. Forests of North Carolina. A few years ago, you are going through the Q-Course Special Forces Qualification Course, one of the longest, most intellectually demanding, and grueling selections in the world. It lasts over a year. They are not looking for the fastest runners or the best shots here. They are looking for those who can think under colossal pressure. The final phase of selection is called Robin Sage. You and your small team are dropped into the fictional country of Pineland. Your task is to find local guerrillas played by actors and special forces veterans and convince them to cooperate with you. You are starving. You haven't slept for 3 days. Your body aches from exhaustion. Your team makes contact with a guerrilla leader deep in the forest. He is aggressive. He demonstratively distrusts Americans. He yells, waves his arms, and suddenly points a weapon at you, demanding you immediately hand over all your scarce medical supplies, or he will shoot you. An ordinary infantryman would just shoot the threat or dive for cover. But you are a future Green Beret. Your primary weapon is not a rifle. Your weapon is empathy. On a pine branch, right above the screaming guerrilla leader's head, sits a small snail in a miniature fedora hat. It slowly, methodically chews a green leaf, completely ignoring the conflict. Nearby, leaning against the damp trunk of an oak tree, stands Detective Jimmy in his beige trench coat with a cigarette in his teeth. Empathy as a tactical weapon, the detective says quietly, flicking the ash. For this man to follow you to certain death, you must understand his pain, his culture, his fears, his motives. Special Forces isn't about shooting targets. It's about social engineering in extreme conditions. If you snap into aggression or pride right now, you fail the selection. You will be sent home. You take a deep breath. Slowly, with open palms, you lower your weapon to the ground and begin long, exhausting negotiations, completely suppressing your ego for the sake of the mission. Level 2, Operator Ghost in the village, Afghanistan. Helmand Province. Present day, you passed the selection. You earned the coveted Green Beret, and now you are part of an operational detachment Alpha Oda. 12 men dropped into a remote, God-forsaken Afghan village surrounded by mountains. Your task is to train local police and protect the village from the Taliban. You have lived here for 6 months without leaving. You grew a thick beard. Your skin has turned dark from the sun and dust. You drink sweet green tea with the local elders for hours, discussing the harvest and their families. You treat their children with antibiotics from your field kit. The line is slowly beginning to blur. You want less and less to return to the large, safe American base, where there are strict regulations, perfectly clean uniforms, air conditioners, and hot showers. Everything there seems artificial, sterile, fake to you. Here, in the mud, you start to understand the language without a translator. You start to think like them. You genuinely become attached to these harsh, war-hardened people. But one night, during a joint patrol of the village perimeter, the young Afghan policeman you shared your rations with and laughed with yesterday suddenly raises his rifle and points it straight at your back. A green and blue attack, a strike from your own. Betrayal. Your trained reflexes fire faster than your thoughts. 2 dry shots, the threat is neutralized. The body falls into the dust. Panic, screaming, and women crying rise in the village. The trust you so carefully built, piece by piece, for 6 whole months, is destroyed in a single second. Level 3. Disillusionment, Robin Hood Syndrome, Command Office on base. 2 months later, you are sitting in a clean, brightly lit office before high-ranking army brass. The village you protected has fallen under enemy control, not because you lost a battle, but because geopolitics changed. Politicians in Washington, in their expensive suits, decided to cut funding for this operation. You were given a direct order to pack up, board the helicopters, and leave, abandoning the locals who believed in you, who risked their lives for you. Jimmy sits in the corner of the office, legs crossed. The Snail slowly crawls across the glossy, freshly printed retreat order, leaving a wet trail on it. Robin Hood Syndrome, the detective states with a bitter smirk. You come to the oppressed, playing the noble saviors. You give them hope, you give them weapons, and your officer promises. And then a soulless system forces you to leave, abandoning them to certain death and reprisal. To politicians, it's just a shift in strategy on a global chessboard. But to an operator, it's the deepest moral trauma. You feel like the worst traitor on earth. You return to the empty barracks. You stare at your Green Beret for a long time. It used to be the absolute symbol of freedom and honor for you. And now it feels like an unbearably heavy burden of hypocrisy and broken promises. What do? Write your resignation letter, unable to reconcile with the hypocrisy of the system and your nightmares, or cynically lock your emotions behind a steel vault, turning into a robot and preparing for the next mission. Choose, surrender, or become a cynic. Level 4, Alien at Home, Massive Shopping Mall, Texas. Sunday, your long deployment is over. You have returned to the US. You are on a long-awaited vacation. You are walking through a huge, brightly lit shopping mall with your family. Around you, well-fed people argue loudly over discounts on flat-screen TVs. They drink over-sweetened lattes with syrup. They laugh hysterically at stupid videos on their brand-new smartphones. To a normal person, this is a peaceful paradise of safe consumerism. To you, It's a completely alien, disgusting, plastic world. You look at these content, carefree people, and the exhausted faces of the elders in that village flash before your eyes. You remember the dirty streets, the smell of gunpowder, and the constant, ringing tension. And the most terrifying part is you suddenly realize with horror that you miss that dirt. There, at the edge of the world, life had a crystal clear meaning. There was only black and white, life and death, honesty and betrayal. And here, there is only an endless, suffocating, gray void of comfort. You cannot explain to your wife why choosing wallpaper for the bedroom for hours infuriates you. You completely shut down. You become a silent ghost in your own home. Level 5. Psychological Archive. Jimmy's Secret Archive. Twilight, you walk down the concrete steps into the basement. Cold neon light hums on the ceiling. Jimmy is waiting for you at a metal desk, arms crossed. The Snail sits on the spine of a thick cardboard folder stamped Top Secret, Psychological Profile. Green Berets are unique in that their primary weapon is not a rifle, but psychology. The detective begins, opening the folder, but when you use human empathy as an instrument of war, it will inevitably ricochet and hit you. Let's see exactly what breaks in this complex mechanism. Phenomenon 1. Cross-cultural adaptation syndrome. Operators live among local tribes for months, sometimes years. Jimmy points to photographs from Afghanistan. To survive and complete the mission, they have to adopt foreign customs, language, and thinking. At some point, the line blurs completely. The operator begins to identify with the local population more than with his American command. He begins to genuinely hate the bureaucrats from Washington and fanatically defend the interests of the Afghans or Colombians to the detriment of orders. This is a form of deep psychological enmeshment, a loss of one's own roots. Psychological first aid. If you work for a long time in a foreign, aggressive, or unusual environment, another country, harsh corporate culture, you risk losing your identity. Always maintain your personal rituals that connect you to your home and your original self. Google. Cross-cultural adaptation syndrome, military. Phenomenon 2. Compassion fatigue. The Snail slowly crawls across a photograph of a destroyed mud hut. To earn trust, a Green Beret must genuinely empathize with the locals, participate in their lives. But war is a ruthless meat grinder. When these locals die right before your eyes, your empathy literally burns you from the inside out. A regular infantryman is protected by distance. He simply follows orders. A special forces operator working in the field loses close friends whom he himself recruited for this war. This leads to colossal, destructive emotional burnout. Psychological first aid. Empathy is a great professional tool, but it requires fuses. If your job involves constantly empathizing with other people's pain, doctors, psychologists, rescue workers, social workers, you need strict emotional hygiene and rest. You cannot save others while destroying yourself. Google. Compassion fatigue in special forces. Phenomenon 3. Robin Hood syndrome and institutional betrayal. You come to a village as a liberator. You make promises to the people on behalf of your entire country, Jimmy says, harshly. And then politicians across the ocean decide to change the geopolitical course, and you are recalled. You are forced to abandon your loyal allies to certain death. This breaks the operator's fundamental value system. He becomes a traitor in his own eyes. The unbearable guilt over broken promises haunts them for years. destroying their psyche worse than any bullet. Psychological first aid. Separate your personal responsibility from the cold decisions of a massive system. You did absolutely everything you could within your authority. You are not responsible for the global decisions of the corporation, management, or the state. Google moral injury and political betrayal. Phenomenon 4. Reverse culture shock. Jimmy pulls a glossy advertising brochure for that very mall in Texas out of the folder, returning to a well-fed, safe environment after extreme survival. The American culture of mindless consumption seems absurd, empty, and insulting to the veteran. People throw tantrums over a broken air conditioner, while back where he came from, children die of infections and thirst. This cognitive dissonance breeds a dull irritation and hidden aggression toward all civilians. The veteran isolates himself from society because he feels like a lonely alien among the blind. Psychological first aid. Do not invalidate the problems of peaceful people. Yes, they seem petty and ridiculous to you, but this is normal for peacetime. People are not to blame for not seeing war. Find meaning in creating here, not in destroying there. Google reverse culture shock combat veterans. Phenomenon 5. Small unit cohesion ODA teams operate in 12-man units, completely detached from the main command. An incredible, superhuman level of trust and brotherhood forms within this small group, but this trust ultimately becomes a lifelong prison. After their service ends, the operator physically cannot find such loyal people in civilian society. No corporate management team will ever replace the brothers you fired back within the mud, sharing the last sip of water. Psychological first aid. Lower your expectations of civilian colleagues. They are not obligated to be ready to die for you. Build new connections based on different peaceful values, shared hobbies, mutual help in the family, creativity. Google small unit cohesion, aftercare psychology. Jimmy slams the heavy folder shut. Green Berets are the intellectual elite of special forces. They use other people's minds to win wars, but their own mind incredibly often becomes the main and only victim of this war. He adjusts his hat, pulling it over his eyes. Drop a like if you understand the depth, and we will continue to open these archives. The light goes out. The snail seamlessly dissolves into the shadows.
Author's note: Hello. Green Berets Army Special Forces are unique, rare individuals. Their official motto is, "De oppresso liber to free the oppressed." Their main job is not to run around with a rifle like in the movies. Their job is to become part of a foreign culture, win the absolute trust of the locals, and start a rebellion. But psychology does not forgive playing with empathy. It is impossible to genuinely attach yourself to people, become part of their family, and then abandon them on the orders of politicians without consequences. Many operators return home with crippling guilt. They do not feel guilt for those they killed. They feel guilt for those they tamed but could not protect, and this phenomenon affects far more than just special forces. Reverse culture shock and compassion fatigue are familiar to many of us in everyday life. To doctors, teachers, social workers, psychologists. To everyone who lets someone else's pain pass through them, and then inevitably faces the indifference and bureaucracy of a system. Go to the Community tab on the Detective Jimmy and Snail channel. I have already created a special poll for this episode there. Have you ever experienced a deep disillusionment in a system, for example, in your company when management forced you to break a promise to someone? Thank you for watching us and thinking with us. Our channel is a safe place for complex psychology. Protect your psyche. Do not let corporations and systems burn your empathy to ash. This was the Detective Jimmy and Snail channel. See you in the shadows.